So, you think you know this comic? Think again. Welcome to my other channel, which I'm assuming you either only found through watching my other video on my other channel, or you found it possibly by looking up a certain webcomic, which is the whole reason why this channel exists. So I'm so excited about it. Oh my gosh, you guys. And let me just tell you, if you think that something like Marvel, Star Wars, or Five Nights at Freddy's lore, let me tell you, we might just have a runner-up here, because the lore in this series goes so deep and it is insane how many details there are. So buckle up, strap in, because this is gonna be a wild ride. If you're here and you're like, what in the world is she talking about? You may have heard of it either through a webcomic series, either on the website, on Webtoon, or many other places, or maybe you watched a certain animated short film with the same title. Either way, we're basically going to be talking about the same thing, which is Lackadaisy. It started off as a webcomic, and then eventually, and most recently, got changed into an animated short film, which is going to become a series. So what is Lackadaisy exactly? Well, that's what we're here to talk about. This is a video that I wish that I had when I first got introduced to this comic, because let me tell you, I was so confused, but we're gonna fix that today. We're gonna fix any confusion going in, or even if you are familiar with the content, to get a little bit of either a refresh or more in-depth intro that I wish I had before actually going into it. First things first, let's talk about the what, where, and when. So what? It's actually criminals. We're dealing with criminals, gangsters specifically. We'll get into more about what that means in a second. When? 1927 specifically, but a lot of the background does go into the earlier 1920s. Where? In St. Louis, Missouri. But before we do, we're gonna have to talk about some content warning and the overall rating of this series. So just some things to keep in mind if you're thinking about getting into the comic, or just wanting to know what's in it if you plan on doing so. So let's get into it. First of all, let's talk about what's not in it, which is great. First of all, we need to address the elephant in the room. Literally, kind of not. You get the joke. You get the joke. This is not furry exclusive content. So what immediately can draw a lot of viewers away probably is seeing that these are cats. Here's the thing. If it were humans, the story would be the same. Nothing would change. The fact that they're cats has no effect on the story or even their characters as a whole. It's literally just for design purposes and because the writer is a cat lady. Whoops, completely okay. So I should have specified this before I got into it. I'm so sorry. All of the content that we will be discussing is not original content. I thought I made that clear. Maybe I didn't. But this is a comic by Tracy J. Butler, who is incredibly talented and just such a great writer, such a good storyteller, and I pretty much love everything that she's done. I'm making a whole channel based off of it, so hello. She's extremely talented and so hardworking, and I just very much admire her work, so much that I'm obsessed with it, and I'm going to be blabbering about it on this channel. So if that doesn't give you enough of an indication of how talented she is, then that's your fault. Let me just be clear, it's not only for furries. Of course furries have access to it just like everybody else, but it's not just for them. It's for everybody. It's basically the same as watching Robin Hood, the Disney animated version of Robin Hood where they're all animals, as well as a lot of the old Disney animated films. So it's really not that different. This series is definitely not for kids, and we're going to get to why in just a second, but at least it's nice to know that there's no explicit content, if you know what I'm talking about. That's awesome. There's no mention of it whatsoever, and thank God. I probably wouldn't be able to read this comic if it didn't, so. But let's now talk about what is in it. So there is minimal swearing, which honestly is close to nothing, especially if you watch pretty much anything on the internet nowadays. Drinking and smoking depictions. Drinking is huge in this comic, and it's gonna be very evident as to why it kind of has to be there. The biggest thing is probably going to be violence. There are some raids, some bloody wounds, nothing too gory, but it's going to be very violent. There's going to be some disturbing scenes that take place. Thankfully, you don't see what could be shown, but it still can be kind of, questionable sometimes. But the overall rating, according to the author, is PG-13, so like I said, not that bad. But before we actually get into the comic plot itself, we're gonna have to bring up some historical context to make it all make sense. This is some information I wish I had before starting as well. And if you don't have the historical context, you're not going to understand the comic whatsoever at all. So let's get into it. The comic takes place in the 1920s, the decade of jazz and flappers and also prohibition. If you don't know what that is, it was essentially a law, the 18th Amendment to be exact, that banned the consumption and manufacturing of alcohol throughout the United States.
Where the Devil's Brew is concerned, no barrel was allowed to go unsmashed.
You would think that this caused people to stop drinking, but it didn't. Quite the opposite, actually. And you can thank speakeasies for that. If you don't know what a speakeasy is, it's basically a hidden or underground gambling joint with a bar. They often had entertainment and food served as well. These businesses were run by gangsters and criminals who earned a ton of money from their illegal businesses. They also managed to get away with it by bribing cops and having fronts, or legitimate businesses with buildings that could hide the illegal ones. You remember how in The Great Gatsby they met up with this crime boss in a barber shop? You remember when a secret door opened with a password and there was this underground restaurant? Well, that's what a speakeasy is, and the barber shop would be considered the front. Now, I hope you got all of that, because now we can start actually moving into the comic itself. In 1920 St. Louis, Missouri, it all started with two men, Atlas May and Asa Sweet. Atlas owned a quaint restaurant called the Little Daisy Cafe. However, when Prohibition came around, and finding out about the underground limestone caverns, Atlas turned his innocent little cafe into the front for his speakeasy known as the Lackadaisy, hence the name of the comic. Meanwhile, Asa Sweet was the night manager of a hotel named Maribel. He then came to be the boss of the Marigold Room, another speakeasy. So we have Atlas with Lackadaisy and Asa with Marigold. Man, these two love flowers, huh? After a while of the two's peaceful coexistence, however, Atlas May was mysteriously murdered, and Marigold has been acting suspiciously ever since. Although most suspect his widow, Mitzi May, who is now the new boss of the Lackadaisy. Due to his death, most employees have abandoned the speakeasy to nothing but memory, except for a couple who remain. With these remaining workers, a lot of immortality, and a hint of chaos, the future of the Lackadaisy remains uncertain. Alas, they press on in the hopes of restoring it to what it was before. So that is the general plot line of the story, just to give you a little bit of what it's all about. So the typical genres, if you're interested in a comic like this, if you like historical fiction, if you like drama, if you like action, if you like adventure a little bit, while remaining in Missouri, of course. If you like comedy or dark comedies, this is definitely right up your alley. And maybe a little bit of thriller and a little bit of violence, then I would say this comic is definitely for you. So there you go, that's the intro to the Lackadaisy. If you want to read the comic or go support the animation, I will have links down below so that you can start your journey reading the story, or you can support the animators working very, very hard to make the content that they're working on. Hopefully they'll have the next episode available soon. I hear there's some news coming up, which I'm very excited for. The next video, I'm going to introduce or give a basic spoiler-free introduction to the characters, some of their personalities, backstories, and roles in the story. So, until next time, ta-ta!